The jig can be considered one of the most versatile lures today in bass fishing. There are many different types of jigs, from your finesse jig, casting jig, swim jig, football jig. And today on Bass Fishing Declassified, we're going to give you guys jig modification tips that you can use any time of the year or right now during the tough month of the year that we are in fishing. So guys, let's get into it.
Hey guys, Kyle Cordiana with Bass Fishing Declassified. Today I want to talk to you about a jig and a little bit of a jig modification that to me goes a really long way in the thought process and catching more fish and utilizing your trailers. So I'm fortunate enough that I got a lot of options with lurenet.com to use for really good jig trailers, but 3 of my staple jig trailers are going to come with the Gene LaRue Hammer Craw, the Gene LaRue Hoo Daddy, love that, and the Christie Craw. So they all have their own unique action and they're all different in size. So I'm going to start by talking about the Gene LaRue Hammer Craw. So this is a much smaller profile bait. It's not very long, it's just a couple inches long. And when I'm considering a jig for this, I want both my trailer and my skirt to dictate the action of the bait. So if I really want a lot of action, that's going to come out of the trailer. The jig doesn't offer a lot of action. It's a pretty subtle bait. The skirt's pretty subtle. So if you want a lot of action, you either want to A, select a motion fishing finesse skirted jig that has a much shorter skirt. I'm talking about the skirt stops at the shank of the hook for the most part. It's just barely concealing the hook. So when I do that, it's a low profile, but what it does is it allows the bottom end of the trailer to kick around a bunch. As opposed to that, if I have a skirt that's really long, like this big motion fishing football jig, if I got a skirt that drapes way below the hook and I pair it with a finesse hammer craw like that, it's gonna stop the action. The skirt's gonna get in the way of the legs trying to kick, and it's going to kill the action. Now, I may want that out of my bait, but if I don't, it's really important that I trim my skirt back and allow the action of the bait. If I'm going for a big profile bait, then I'm going to go to the Christie Craw, which is quite a bit longer than the Hammer Craw. I'm going to go to the Christie Craw, or my favorite little trick is to go to the Hoo Daddy. On the Hoo Daddy, you ain't ever trimming the skirt. You want a nice long skirt that's fine. You can rig this dude the whole length of that Hoo Daddy up there, and you've got that whole Hoo Daddy kicking. Now, I love just throwing a Texas rig Hoo Daddy, so the length of the bait, that's plenty, that's good for me. That hook is still all the way down to the ribs of the Hoo Daddy. And so be really mindful of your skirt selection. Be really mindful of when you want to trim it up, when you want to eliminate some of the action of your trailer, or if you want to maximize the action, maximize the profile of the bait. So that's my tip for you guys today. Use your skirt to determine the action of your bait and go after the fish that you're targeting. So I hope that helps. Don't forget, you can get all these baits, all these plastic baits, wow, it's windy, over at lurenet.com. Use my coupon code Cordiana15, saves you 15%, and they give me a little kickback too. So hope this helps you guys catch a little more fish with your motion fishing jigs.
Okay guys, what's up, man? I love throwing a jig. Jig was one of my early lures that I got attached to because where I live out central Arkansas to the central part of the country, a jig, man, can be used year round. It can be used in the summer, it can be used in the winter, the fall. It can catch fish shallow to deep. So it's a great lure, and I'm excited to share with you just a little bit of a jig, kind of a style of a jig that I like, okay? I think you might like as well. But before that, guys, I've started a new YouTube channel called The Fishing Coach. Go check it out. I'm going to be posting other videos on it. I'm still going to be on Declassified. My solo videos are going to be here for now, but eventually my videos are going to be on that channel, okay? But like I said, I'm still going to be here. I'm not disappearing. So hopefully go over there, subscribe to it, man. Go watch a couple videos I got. Let me know what you think on it. But guys, let's talk about this jig. Now, first off, I'm going to share a type of the jig. I found one on Tackle Warehouse. I'm going to share it right here so you're looking at it as I'm talking. I don't have my boat right now. It's in the shop, so I don't have this jig's in my boat, okay? But it's a jig to where there is no brush guard. And instead of that brush guard, there's going to be a screw lock, and you can screw lock a soft plastic lure of your choice and then put it in the hook. So it is now weedless, and there is just no brush guard there. One thing about this jig, guys, and I've not thrown this jig probably in about a couple years, but when I was, early in the fishing, one of the things I know that new anglers, and even myself, and new anglers just kind of, with jigs, always said the hook's exposed, the hook's open. Well, guys, this right here, one thing this does is make this jig diverse, and you then can put your favorite soft plastic on it. So you still have your skirt material, you have a good hook, and then you now, instead of a brush guard, it's just weedless with your soft plastic. So I'm sharing this with you guys if you're new to bass fishing, or if you're the experienced angler and you just don't like fishing jigs, but you want more of a weedless jig. So for me, on the soft plastics, before you ask, you can put a worm. A grub is one thing I would do actually fishing grass lakes, like Washita. And now if you watch this and the gray has grass coming back, the gray's a good one as well. So a grub was one of my grass lake kind of imitators that I'd have. Also your craw bait styles, that Rage Craw by Strike King, Zoom Z Craw, the Fighting Frog by Big Bite Baits. That was always kind of what I stuck to. Okay, so it was either a grub style or a craw style, and those are the three craw styles that I used at that time. There's others I might try now, but just what I use. I love the Z Craw and that Fighting Frog. So guys, what it does is, it helps you're more weedless, and it makes you feel confident as you're fishing that you have a weedless jig. Okay, now there are other companies. Wind's blowing, hopefully y'all aren't hearing this, but there are other kind of companies that's done this with a swim jig. In my little small tackle room that I got one of these hanging around. This is the swim jig. It's the Axle swim jig by 6 cents, so it's kind of similar to it, but it's a swim jig style. So you got your hook. This is a big hook actually, and I probably should take it out of the box, but you got a screw lock there. This thing actually swings around, as you see right there. Your hook's exposed. This is great to throw in grass. I've tried this in grass, and it has that swim jig style head, so you could probably swim it in other spots, timber as well. But guys, check that jig out. Okay, like I put one there from Tackle Warehouse. The one that I actually throw, I forgot the brand. It's more of a homemade, small mom and pop brand that I use. If I get my boat back before this video gets posted, I might take a picture and put it in here. Okay, guys, we appreciate you, and hey, let's go see what the next angler has to say.
Guys, enjoy the content in this video and want more personalized instruction, head to our website, fishthemoment.com. Then go to the virtual lessons page. Here you can book one-on-one virtual lessons with each member of the Fish the Moment team. In these 1-hour lessons, the Fish the Moment team member will break down your lake using Google Earth and a contour line map and answer any questions you have. Whether you're preparing for an upcoming fishing tournament or a fun weekend on the lake, make sure you sign up for one of these one-on-one virtual lessons so you're fully prepared to catch as many fish as possible on the water. Check them out at fishthemoment.com.
Hey guys, welcome back here to another edition of Bass Fishing Declassified. And much appreciated you guys joining us for today's episode. Guys, today we're going to be talking about jig modifications. There's a ton of different modifications you can do with jigs. I'm going to show you probably my favorite modification that allows me to take the same jig and use it in a diversity of situations here. So we'll get into it. First of all, let's talk about the jig, guys. This is the 5/8 ounce. It's my Block-It old school jig. You can get it exclusively here at Bait Works in Springfield, Missouri. And I've got it coupled up with a Zoom Super Chunk on there. Now you can see this is a large, full-size jig right here that's probably close to 5 inches long total. But with the modification, you can take this full-size jig and you can make it into a compact finesse jig. So we're going to do that right now. So first of all, let's take the same jig here and we're going to cut the skirt back on it. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the skirt back even with the back of the hook there with a pair of scissors here, straight across. And then the next thing I do, guys, you don't want to just leave it straight across. Come in and cut out a few strands like this all the way around the jig. And what this does, it sort of gives it more of a wild, crazy look. It's not really uniform, but ultimately you just want the skirt just below the shank of the hook there. Now, after we do that, we're going to take a Zoom Super Chunk Junior, which is a smaller version, and instead of threading it on, you see we've got this threaded on like a pork frog here to make it longer. Instead of hanging it off the end, we're going to thread it on to give it a more compact look. And I'm going to show you it's going to be the same jig, but a completely different profile. So that's the little tidbit that's created. Now, look at this. This is the exact same jig here, guys. It's just a different trailer on it, different skirt cut on it. I've cut the skirt back, put a smaller trailer on. And sometimes you want a small jig, but you don't want like a finesse jig with a small wire hook in it. So I can take my same flipping jig here and I can make it compact, and I can flip it in heavy cover with heavy line during those times the fish want a smaller bait, and accomplish the same thing as with my full-size jig. So this is one of my key modifications that I make based upon the cover I'm fishing, the size of the fish I'm after, and the water clarity. So anyway, guys, just get you a pair of scissors, downsize your trailers. You can get a lot of different variations out of the same jig. Save you some money there too. So thanks for tuning in.
One of the great things about jig fishing is that you can put a jig in any form of cover and make it pretty much through that without getting stuck. You know, a standard jig comes with some form of weed guard, like this bristle guard in the front, which really does make it truly a weedless presentation. You know, if I dig through my jig box right here, what I'll find is all of these jigs come with a standard weed guard. But what I gotta tell you is, I think it's a mistake if you leave that weed guard untouched. If you dig through this box here, what you'll end up finding are a lot of jigs like this one right here. There's no weed guard at all. Most other anglers, if you watch jig fishing tip videos, will tell you to trim the weed guard, shorten it, spread it out, cut some of the bristles out. I'm here to tell you that you should think about removing that weed guard altogether, because if you're not fishing in an area that requires that weed guard, it's not doing you any good, meaning you're getting fewer bites because it's not as natural looking. And more than anything, you get worse hookups if you leave that weed guard in. So if I'm fishing around rock or very few laydowns, or I'm fishing out on a grass flat and I'm stroking the jig through the grass, I'm really not getting any advantage to that weed guard. So I go ahead and I pluck it out completely. I will take a pair of pliers, pull the entire weed guard out, and just leave the hook exposed. And I get such a better hookup percentage and a much better landing percentage that it makes a huge difference for me. If the weed guard's not needed, cut it out, pull it out, you know. And if you really want to pull it out with pliers and you feel like you might want to put it back in, you can pull it out, put a dab of glue, stick it right back in, and use it for the next time that you want it. But generally speaking, I remove the weed guard in a lot of instances. Now, if I'm flipping wood, if I'm fishing down a bank with a bunch of laydowns, or I'm casting into brush piles, obviously I'm going to leave the weed guard in. But I got to tell you, if I'm fishing around rock, I very, very rarely have a weed guard in. If I'm fishing weed lines and I'm ripping the bait out, I'll remove the weed guard a lot of the times as well. Give it a try, guys. I'm telling you, it'll lead to a few extra bites and a much better landing